Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to address not so much the leadership of the Facebook, because we addressed them several times, even at the level of our official bodies. We would like to address more Ukrainian society. Again, draw attention to that problem. And that's inadequate moderation in this very popular and important for us social network. I mean Facebook, the moderation of Ukrainian segment. And what we would like to mention is the latest case. It's quite demonstrative. That is my personal experience. I was banned, and my post with the poem of Shevchenko was deleted. That sounds ridiculous for Ukrainian audience, but that is the case, which demonstrates this inadequacy. You can see on a screenshot the information that this post was deleted because it doesn't follow the Facebook community standards. And that is just the portrait of Shevchenko and the quote from his poem. That poem, I understand that some people who do not know Ukrainian reality, some moderator of Facebook could believe that that's controversial, but that is the poem that we studied at school. That is the poetry of the 19th century, classical Ukrainian poetry, which we studied even in Soviet school. Even Soviet Union did not ban it, and the Facebook banned it. But the problem is not in this specific case. This specific case is quite demonstrative from the point of view that what people are moderating Ukrainians. In spring, there were many cases when our famous bloggers were banned because of political posts, because they believed that their posts are controversial, but everyone paid attention to how inadequate it is. And this is, we believe, just the example of inadequacy of such moderation. What it means? It means that most probable Facebook answered the previous request from the National Council on radio and TV broadcasting that the moderation does not take place from Moscow office as we suspected. It is done from Dublin. That's where the headquarters, European headquarters of Facebook is located. And as they said, they have an objective international team there. But you can see about objectiveness as to internationality. We can imagine what type of team is there. If you go to Facebook and you have Ukrainian interface, and you go to support of Facebook, you will see the information that for your language there's no support. Please choose another language, English or Russian. There's no Ukrainian support, which means that there are no Ukrainian employees who moderate and are responsible for that. And because they understand Russia, most probably there are Russians there, but they are sitting not in Moscow but in Dublin. But this doesn't change the situation. Any person who studied in Ukrainian school would understand that you cannot ban for that. Even KGB did not ban it in times of the Soviet Union. So the problem that we would like to raise is that Ukrainians should stop being ashamed of standing for their political, cultural interests everywhere. We have to stop, just like Jews. There was a case when they banned some Jewish artist on Facebook with similar ridiculous accusations, because many Arab bots or real users were complaining, and Mr. Zuckerberg had to apologize for that. We do not demand any apologies because they banned it and then they removed the ban, but any Ukrainian more or less popular blogger already had experience with such bans, but we want them to respect Ukrainians, their culture, their national poets, so that there are no such strange cases happening in moderation. If they ban for that, then just imagine what else they can ban for. Ukrainians have to draw conclusions, and they have to learn and get used to standing for their interest. That is briefly about this case, and I would like to give the floor to Dmytro. Maybe Dmytro will add something.
Hello, everybody. Zen has raised the problem. The problem has been ripe for some time already, and he said that if we do not ourselves demand what we need, no one is going to give us this. In principle, it is not important where the moderator group sits, Dublin or Africa. What is important is the personal composition of those moderators. Of course, we cannot tell Facebook what they are doing, but we can insistently ask. And I think that this request can be heard. More so that over the last time we've seen what's been happening in relations between Ukraine and Russia. Russia historically has been the center of gravitation for the post-Soviet space, and now I think this center will float to Ukraine, and we can stir Facebook so that they, for instance, as one of the options, opens an office in Ukraine. I understand that this probably is not the Facebook style, because they've got their own corporate ethics. However, if we do not raise this problem insistently, no one's going to solve it for us. So I would like to address, we are two bloggers here, and we have more powerful bloggers, of course, so I would like to address them. We are not the cleverest persons. Let's put our heads together and think how we raise the issue and what we ask from Facebook, so that the problem of inadequate moderation in the Ukrainian segment of Facebook is solved. This is the major thing that we should do. Get together, I mean the leaders of public opinion, top bloggers, and so on. So this is my suggestion in order to solve this problem. If there are any questions, thank you. You said in order to solve the problem, do we have to sort of write an open letter and collect 1 million signatures so that we send it to Facebook headquarters or what? My proposal is, of course, is not unique, and it is not alone. We have to think, but to start the process, first of all, we have to understand what we want specifically, and we should ask for what they can give us in principle. whether it is possible to transfer the office or probably open an office in Ukraine. First of all, we have to understand what we have to request, what we can request, but in reality we should demand, because our stand, maybe some people do not see this, but it became stronger than a year ago in the world and in Facebook as well. So we should understand what we want and then think about how we formulate this. My proposal was that we should write a brief letter, because brevity is a sister of talent, an address from the Ukrainian segment of Facebook to the management of Facebook. This is the first page. The second page is to briefly and clearly tell what we want, and on the third page you have a number of serious signatures. We have to assemble and consolidate the entire Facebook and produce such a statement. It should be also made online, and then it should be on paper, and signatures and dates should be put there, and then it should be sent to the Facebook headquarters. How we do this and how we promote this on the Facebook, I think our bloggers will decide how to do this. What is important is to gather together and solve the issue. Were there any talks about Ukrainian bloggers? I think that the problem is ripe at the moment, but we lacked such an example as we show here, because there are people who are inadequate, and I think this is just a example of inadequacy. Probably a person there saw the word Moskal, which means a Russian or a Russian soldier. And I think that inadequate moderation, I think that many people have felt all those moderation quirks on ourselves, and I think that there was an address at one time, but it was not composed in the right way. We should raise the problem and solve it. Maybe someone will think that against the background of the events that are happening at the moment, this is a petty problem, a Facebook, some social network, but first of all, this is not just a social network. This is the biggest social network in the world, more than 1 billion users. And in fact, this is one of the information media giants where Ukraine is represented in a certain way, and we have to promote our interests everywhere, including the Western market, including the internet, including Facebook. Of course, you can say create a Ukrainian Facebook and do whatever you want there. Well, of course, this can be done, but this doesn't mean that we should relinquish our resource that already exists to some inadequate moderators. This is a powerful resource, and we want to protect our interests there. This is what we have to realize as a society, to understand that no one is going to give us something for free. We will be pushed out of everywhere, because Russia is waging information war in the Facebook as well, and our politically active bloggers are being banned because of the actions of the detachment of cyber troops of Russia, because those bots who are botting people are just pinpointed actions. When they see that someone is promoting something actively, they are shooting our heads off one by one, and we have to resist this as a society, as a state, as a collective of bloggers. Yes, there were other addresses, they were on a rather high level, but bureaucracy. How can you wage a war against bureaucracy? You should bother them all the time until they get bored and try to yield. The more so that Facebook is sooner on our side than on the side of Russians. But of course they have a narrow attention span and maybe they lack resources.
But if we are active, if we are actively promoting our interests, then sooner they will make a decision whether this will be opening an office in Kiev or maybe they will hire some people who know Ukrainian mentality, Ukrainian context, Ukrainian realities, and they will be assessing more adequately whether that is a violation of Facebook community standards or not. Thank you. If you have any other questions, you're welcome. I have one more. Whether any successful cases of resolving such incidents in other countries so that we can refer. I mentioned one of the recent cases. I will talk in more detail about that. That was one of the Israeli artists who was painting, making paintings, but he was painting the Jewish part of Jerusalem. But Arab users started complaining that he's racist because he does not paint Arab part of Jerusalem. And Facebook banned him because there were so many complaints. And that's not very adequate, because if a person paints something and doesn't paint something else, it doesn't mean that the person is racist. And they did not just remove the ban because of the world Jewish community was insisting on that, but Zuckerberg apologized, even bought his paintings. So Jewish lobby shows how in many cases we should act, because Holocaust, in Holodomor, not less people died than during Holocaust, but they pay money for Holocaust, they apologize for Holocaust. When Russia starts paying us money for Holodomor, for the starvation, let's start from small cases so that they do not ban us because of Ukrainian poets. And the monuments to such poets are not just in Ukraine. The biggest number of his monuments are all over the world. I have a photograph of the monument to Shevchenko in Washington, D.C. And Facebook believes, or some of its moderators believe that it doesn't follow Facebook community standards. We need to draw conclusions, we need to act, and then we will win in the information war, in this real war. Glory to Ukraine. Thank you. In any case, we cannot diminish the role of the Facebook, especially for the events in Ukraine. Ukrainian Crisis Media Center is ready to join